Welcome to Sinister Heroes. I'm your host, Danny Iniquitous. Thank you for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, this is a channel about Dungeons and Dragons where we try and take a darker tone with the characters and concepts we come up with. If you like that kind of a thing, please like, share, subscribe. Please keep commenting. Talking with you guys is one of the best things about having this channel. It's great to hear your concepts, your ideas, and these great games you're able to play with and your wonderful DMs that allowed such awesome things. This week's video, we're going to talk about the incomparable Arakorcra and try and see if we can get them a little less banned constantly. So without further ado, let's learn about the Arakorcra. The Arakorcra come to us from the Elemental Evil's Companion in its original alliteration, and then it was republished again in Monsters of the Multiverse. We will get into the distinction between both of them, and fundamentally they've basically been banned the whole time. It's a concept we're going to cover when we go into their character abilities and their ability traits and those racial scores. But understand that one of the better things about the Arakorcra is they are avian. They love to fly. The way a bird will not walk on its feet very far, a bird will always fly to its next destination. Arakorcra had that same concept. Imagine walking with your party. Arakorcras don't do that. They will fly. They will hopefully fly relatively close. A lot of the times being in the air is what makes them feel like themselves. They are elegant in the air. They are dynamic. It is their favorite place to be. So incorporating that is very, very important to who your Arakorcra is. Also, considering how many variations of birds there are just as many variations you can take on the Arakorcra. In jungle areas, maybe you're more tropical, maybe you look like a parrot. In other areas, you would maybe look distinctively like a bird of prey from that area. Hawks, things like that. They would be very dynamic, some molt into where their areas are, having feathers that resemble their end, like snow or brown for mountainous areas, things like that. They are a very elegant race. You can take a lot of strides with how they look. The only limitation is you cannot be owls. That is a separate race, and we'll talk about them further down the line. So the Arakorcra abilities that you get are a little diverse. Some of the things you'll notice right off the bat is you do not have dark vision. So that is definitely something to understand. You will require some sort of light source. Outside of that, you have some interesting things. Mainly your speed is dropped to 25 feet as opposed to 30, so you're a little slower when walking on the ground. You do have an unarmed strike, which is your talons, which does a 1d4 slashing damage on hit. So unless you are a monk, that will be based off your strength, which I don't think you'll do. But your ability scores do give you a +2 to dexterity and a +1 to wisdom, making you a great monk, ranger, rogue, druid, and even a cleric. All those things are great for you. They kind of fit this thematic thing of this being this incredible avian creature that rises above. So clerics really fit in that well. Naturally, as an animal humanoid, there's a certain nature that ties you to nature and the world around you, which fits really well in consideration. The major thing about the Arakorcra and the reason why they are so constantly banned is their flight ability. Now, they have flight inherently. So at level 1, you gain access to a flying speed of 50 feet. To use the speed, you can't be wearing medium or heavy armor. That being said, you can wear light or no armor if you have some sort of unarmored defense. Understand the big part here is that you do not have hover. So anything that would knock you prone when you are in the air will make you plummet, and you can take fall damage from that, and it can be devastating. The great thing about the Arakorcra, aside from their imagery, is that they make great druids, clerics, and monks, which are character classes which you don't usually see them do a lot of physical things normally. Clerics sometimes, but you do have this availability to be rangers, to be rogues, to be in the air, to use bows. Maybe if you did pick up like a lance or something, that is fantastic. It's very cool because you can use that range quality and be away from everything just by keeping a 5-foot distance. This gets banned a lot because flight can be abused. The easiest way to counteract this for all you DMs out there is to make sure everything has a ranged option. brutes that are just like giant ogres can throw a rock. You know, it has to be something that's going to be able to hit them. Ultimately, that's going to give you what you need to keep these balanced, especially at early levels. Keep in consideration, you can throw a net, maybe give them a little bit wider range of it, and have it actually pull them down to the ground. That would scare any Arakorcra, because that is very dangerous to you. Counteracting flight can be difficult. Having low caves and low tunnels and things like that could make it very interesting and very difficult for them to maneuver around. But if you're building encounters strictly to take out one player character, you really need to consider what you're doing, because it's a very bizarre concept that tends to go a little awry. Everyone wants to be strong. The Arakorcra can be very, very strong. It can be great to have them be dynamic in combat and flying all around and hiding constantly and being out of range. But it does create a power imbalance very, very quickly. A ranger with the archery fighting style is going to be devastating as an Arakorcra. Take those into consideration. If you're worried that one of your players might be too strong with it, just create scenarios that they can be brought down, and it changes everything. But you got to give them the ability to fly, because it's who they are. So give a little, take a little. As long as you have a ranged option, the Arakorcra aren't an issue. They're not overpowered in that way, because you can always hit them. It's the same chances with anything else, and all you have to do is just look up. Monsters of the Multiverse took a way of bringing the Arakorcra down to a little bit more manageable of a level. It does have some things that I do think are pretty great. The ability scores are now changed to that you can put the +2 wherever you want, or +1 into 3 different things, and, you know, +2, +1, whatever. That's cool, because it gives you a lot of versatility, so now you can really be anything, which is great. You still do not have dark vision. Your unarmed strike is now a d6 plus your strength modifier, and it does slashing damage instead of bludgeoning damage for a normal unarmed strike. You do gain a new ability, which I think is pretty cool. You gain the ability Windcaller. Starting at 3rd level, you can cast a Gust of Wind spell with this trait without requiring a material component. Once you cast a spell with this trait, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. You can also cast this spell using any spell slots you have of 2nd level or higher. Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma is your spellcasting ability for when you cast Gust of Wind, and you choose it when you select this race. That's cool. Gust of Wind is one of those spells that doesn't do damage, so people tend to overlook it. It can be just weird and not necessarily used. Considering you have it for free, it's a great way to experiment. And using spells that don't do damage and do like a particular thing are great for expanding your own creative uses of spells. A lot of spells are fantastic, but they don't do any damage, or they don't have any direct inhibiting abilities. So when you see spells like this, you're like, well, why would I bother? Using an ability like this can give you a great new concept and a great new way to see things. It's cool because nobody else really just gets one spell to cast. It's Gust of Wind. I'd prefer you be able to cast it a few more times, but take a look at it. If you're really considering playing this version of the Arakorcra, it's worth giving it the best chance by giving all of the abilities a chance. Your walking speed does bring up to 30 feet, which is pretty cool. Now you're on pace with everything else. Your flight, however, your flight changes. You now have a flying speed equal to your walking speed, and you can't use flying speed if you're wearing medium or heavy armor. The great thing here is if you still decide to go monk, now your flying speed increases with your monk speed, which is a very cool way to get back to yourself and kind of build your way back to where you were before. It's changes. Some of the things seem kind of like a nerf, considering you're not getting that 50-foot flying at level 1, but you're still having flying of 30 feet at 1. That's still really, really useful, and you can create a lot of great utility just with that ability. And you start to see the map, instead of just a flat area, as a real 3D construct where you can now really explore these diagonals and go into places normally you wouldn't really get involved in. But it creates this great way to change your dynamic knowledge of combat, how it works, and seeing that the height really makes a very big difference. The Arakorcra are normally considered a pretty good lawful people. I tend to look upon them with great favor of them being good, noble creatures. That's just me. In truth, considering how great of a variety the avian population is, you can create very dark, sinister Arakorcra rather quickly. It is incredibly cool to consider maybe a vulture as like this noble Arakorcra, this vile, evil wizard Arakorcra, who has enslaved a whole bunch of Kenku because he believed that he could give them the gift of flight back to them if they just obeyed him, and cause this great sinister army of evil Kenku that just repeatedly regurgitate his threats and his message because of the mimic ability. That's cool, you know, like I love that ability, or the Skeksis from the Dark Crystal. It's so great because any bird, any avian creature that you can really consider up close with a human-sized head is dynamically like impressive, like and it's catches your eye. And if you consider it like that, you have this great availability to be imposing, to be this like this daunting, this attention grabbing character, whether it's fear, whether it's power, whether it's leadership and nobility. You have that because there's very few things like that, and you rarely get to see them. So when you see something like an Arakorcra in your party and you never see an Arakorcra before, it is exciting. You don't see them often in most games. To have them as a player character, have that great strength to them, that great uniqueness because they've very rarely seen, because they're very rarely allowed, that's cool. And you can build off that, and you can pull all different directions because there are great nice birds and great evil disgusting ones. And you can play with that. And you can be anything within the new ability score traits. Nothing locks you into anything else outside of needing to wear light armor. So yeah, you're not going to be a paladin probably, or a fighter, but you could be a barbarian. You could be a barbarian that flies with a glaive or a pike, and now you're just ripping through things. And it doesn't matter if you get surrounded because you can just go straight up. Where your limitations are come purely on how you see the Arakorcra. If you see them as just bird people with ranged bows and arrows, yeah, that's cool, that works, it's totally fine. Whether you see them as dive bombing things like a monk, go in, bang, 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 out, or like a rogue, run through, stab, disengage, out, like doing cool things like that make you so viable because you're just constantly moving. You're one of the few characters that can inherently always do that. Being a wizard and being able to sling spells from a great distance, like that's frightening. You know, could you imagine if you decided to go ballistic on a town and you just flew up and just melts minute meteors all over the place? What are they going to do if they're not prepared? What are they going to do if you fly out of archery range? Like, there's so many great concepts. And yeah, I just explained a real reason why DMs do not want Arakorcra in their games. But there's a certain reason why it's exciting. It's something different. It's something you never see, and you can create limitations for it. Just, you know, a lot of times, are you really in a city? Are you really often in the jungle? Probably. Are you in caves 90% of the times, or dungeons? Yeah. So how high are these dungeons? How high can they realistically go? You can have them with pikes and enemies with like pikes, and just you can hit something flying 10 feet in the air. It's not that huge of an ordeal. You fight giant monsters, they're going to just slap them right out of the sky. They're more so impending if you're too scared to play around with some of the stat blocks of your own monsters. If you're willing to give them all a range option or give them a way to bring something down or knock something prone, Arakorcras are just as good as everyone else. They're just as level as everyone else. Flight is intimidating because it's not often dealt with, because people get scared of it. I've played thousands of games with wizards. I've only ever seen them cast fly once. Maybe it's the parties I'm in, maybe it's the people that I play with, but it's not that scary to see something fly. It's alright, take it down if you have to, but let it fly. All that being said, it's time to bring this video to a close. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you so much. It's really amazing. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please keep commenting. It's incredible to have you guys commenting, to share this understanding with you guys and learn from you guys and share these great stories from this game that we all really love. That, and finally, thank you for giving a spooky kid a chance.